there's a river in the ocean, a force of nature so vast it literally shapes the weather. For millennia, it held half the world a secret from the other half, a one-way path to a world from which no one could ever return. This is the story of that river, the Kuroshio, the Black Current, and how unlocking its secret didn't just solve some old navigational puzzle, it remapped the entire planet and placed Mexico right at the very heart of a new global age. Long, long before Europeans ever showed up, the power of this current was known, and it was feared. More than 2,000 years ago, Chinese mariners gave it a name, Wei Yu, which means no man. They described it as this force that just carried people away into the great unknown forever. To them, it wasn't just a geographic feature on a map, it was the stuff of mythology. And this mythical force created a very real, very tangible problem. In the 16th century, the mightiest ocean on Earth was, for all intents and purposes, a one-way street. You see, you could sail west from the Americas to Asia. That part was doable. But coming back? Well, that was the puzzle that consumed an entire empire. The return journey, what they called the Tornaviaje, was a riddle that was literally swallowing ships and men whole. This was a problem with stakes that just could not have been higher, and with every failure, the mystery only deepened. It's almost hard to wrap your head around the contrast between then and now. Today, these massive container ships treat the Pacific like an interstate highway. Their routes are plotted by satellite, their arrivals timed to the hour. It's all routine. But back in the 1550s, for the Spanish Empire based in New Spain, what we now call Mexico, the Pacific was just a void. Now, this wasn't just about discovery for discovery's sake. This was about empire. The question, how do you come back, became an imperial obsession. Because without a return route, what they called La Vuelta, you can't have trade, you can't have administration. There could be no real, lasting connection between New Spain and the incredible riches of Asia. And the failure, you see, it wasn't for a lack of courage or skill or even sturdy ships. The problem was conceptual. The fatal assumption was one of symmetry. The idea that to return, you simply had to retrace your steps. So they would turn their ships east and try to sail directly against the very same winds and currents that had pushed them west so easily. It was like trying to walk up a powerful, fast-moving escalator that's only going down. It just wasn't going to happen. To solve this puzzle, they first had to understand the true nature of their opponent. This unseen force, this massive river flowing within the ocean that was dictating all the rules. It's called Kuroshio. That's Japanese for black current. And the name actually comes from its waters, which are so warm and deep, they look like a dark, almost black ribbon against the rest of the sea. And into this incredible challenge steps one of the most remarkable figures of the age, a man whose entire life had uniquely prepared him to see not an obstacle, but a system. His name was Andres de Urdaneta. And just look at this timeline. It shows you just how improbable his journey was. As a teenager, he joins the disastrous Loíza expedition, a voyage meant to follow Magellan's path that just ended in complete catastrophe. He was one of the very few who made it out alive, stranded for years in the Spice Islands. You could say his true education was one of hardship. He didn't just study the ocean, he survived it. Urdaneta was the man for the job because he was, in every sense, a true Renaissance man. He was this incredible synthesis of different identities, a hardened soldier who understood strategy, a master sailor who knew the sea from raw personal experience. He was a scientist, a diplomat, and later in life, a friar and an advisor to King Philip II himself. It was this amazing combination of skills that allowed him to see what no one else could. And this, right here, this was the core of his genius. Everyone else was completely stuck on that fatal assumption of symmetry. They were all fighting the system. Urdaneta's radical insight was to work with the system. He understood that you don't return across an ocean, you circulate within it. He proposed that to go east, you must first sail north. Don't fight the current. Find the one that's going your way. So, in 1565, Urdaneta's theory was finally put to the ultimate test. The return voyage, the Tornaviaje, was entrusted to his radical, unproven idea, a voyage that would change absolutely everything. His plan was completely counterintuitive, but it was pure science. Instead of just heading east, he sailed northeast, deliberately climbing all the way to a latitude of 39 degrees north, much, much higher than any previous attempt. Why? Because he knew that up there, near the coast of Japan, he would find it, the Black Current. His entire plan was to deliberately enter that oceanic river and let it carry his ship, the San Pedro, across the vast Pacific. And it worked. As the current bent them southward, a long, misty coastline began to appear through the fog, California. It enters world history in that very moment, not as a destination, but as a navigational necessity. It was the handrail, the guidepost provided by the current itself, that told the sailors they had finally crossed the great ocean and could now turn south towards home. But make no mistake, this was no pleasure cruise. 130 days at sea, that's 4 incredibly brutal months. They dealt with scurvy, starvation, unimaginable storms. 16 men died, proving that Urdaneta's theory was correct. The triumph was historic, but that human cost, it reminds us this was science conducted at the absolute edge of human endurance. The successful return of the San Pedro to Acapulco was more than just the end of a voyage. It was the beginning of a grand new era. You see, Urdaneta's discovery didn't just open a route, it fundamentally remapped the world's economic and political landscape. And the impact? Well, it was absolutely immense. The route Urdaneta pioneered, the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, became the longest-running continuous shipping line in history. For 250 years, these great treasure galleons followed his path, forming the single most important artery of the entire Spanish Empire. And Acapulco, in modern-day Mexico, became the hinge upon which this entire new world turned. From the Americas, vast quantities of silver, the very currency that fueled the global economy, flowed west, and from Asia, a torrent of luxury goods like silk, porcelain, and spices flowed east, crossing Mexico by land before being shipped on to Europe. The Pacific Ocean, which had once been this impassable barrier separating continents, suddenly became a circulatory system, an artery connecting them. And for the very first time in history, Mexico was the heart of the first truly global network, connecting Asia, the Americas, and Europe. Urdaneta's world is long gone, of course, but the forces of nature he learned to work with, they're timeless, and the echoes of his discovery are still with us today. Okay, so get this. If you look at a map of modern shipping routes across the Pacific today, you'll see something remarkable. The big container ships leaving Asia for North America. They don't sail in a straight line. They arc northward to save fuel and time. They are, whether they know it or not, following the exact same invisible highway that Urdaneta charted nearly 500 years ago, riding the exact same powerful force. And that, I think, brings us to our final thought here. Urdaneta's true genius wasn't in conquering the ocean, but in understanding it. He mastered not distance, but force. He learned to see the black current not as an enemy, but as what it truly was. Nature's powerful steed, a force that, once you understood it, could be ridden. That same dark river in the sea still carries the weight of our world across the Pacific, and it kind of leaves you to wonder, what other hidden currents are flowing all around us, right now, just waiting for us to see? BASTA. This is Mexico. If something here opened a door, stay and subscribe. BASTA is the second look. Mexico without the filter, without the shortcuts. New episodes every Tuesday and Saturday. See our suggested video right there in the box.